Welcome to the Wing Life Podcast, where we talk about wing foiling and the lifestyles of those who enjoy this great sport. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. Kiran, stoked to chat with you. How's your morning been so far?
Yeah, good man. Just actually went and picked up a bit more gear, a few more items, and we've got a lot of wind here at the moment, so excited to get out this afternoon.
Cool. And I know we had talked a little bit beforehand, but you had said that your day was empty, so you're getting out winging after. Whereabouts are you in Australia?
Sunshine Coast, so east coast of Australia.
Okay, cool. And so you're going to go out there all afternoon. What's the wind look like today?
So we've got a cyclone actually just sitting north of us, which is sucking some wind through us. So we'll be looking at about hopefully 20 knots, about 3 to 4 foot of swell. So, and hopefully that the next few days actually we should get all the remnants of that cyclone. It's just staying off the coast, so it's not going to hit any of the Australia, which is good. So no one's going to get hurt by it. It's going to produce wind and swell.
Oh, sweet. Nice. That'll be a fun afternoon.
Beautiful, yeah.
So when I know you'd reached out and you'd talked to us, and we had so many different things that we want to talk about today, but how long have you been involved in water sports? I'm kind of curious to start there.
Yeah, so as I was saying to you before when we were talking, I came from Brisbane, which is about an hour and a half away from either Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast if people are looking on the map. So I've kind of called myself a weekend surfer. It was pretty much since I was a teenager, kind of in and out of it. You go through stages where you surf a lot and not so much. And then we moved up here in 2019 to the Sunshine Coast. My wife was a doctor and she got work up here for a 6-week contract. And then 4 weeks into that contract, we bought a house and decided we were going to live here forever.
Nice.
And I just had a really big plan to, get into surfing and really focus on trying to get better at surfing than the fact I was living here and I'd have more time. And I was going out and I was struggling with crowds and conditions and waiting for the right conditions. And if it was really good, you're talking, hundreds and hundreds of people. So, trying to improve in those conditions were hard. And then I saw someone foiling. And crazy as I am, I decided the next day to go spend $3,500 to go buy a foil.
Nice.
That's not an easy move.
So, I got the foil and I went out. I watched some videos and I thought, Jesus, can't be too hard. And I went out and I thought, I just made a terrible decision here, spending this money on a foil because, it didn't feel like I was going to get anywhere close to it. I've heard on your podcast guys talk about it, and, getting up in the first, session, and I wasn't even close. So I reached out to a shop near here and got up behind a jet ski and found my feet. And then, started from there. I'd still surf quite a bit. And when we get big swells here over 4 or 5 foot, we've got some really good foiling waves, like point breaks that are just too fat for surfing. So, from 2019, I probably foil 4 to 6 times a year. That was probably it, surf in between. So I wouldn't say I was, some big waterman or into water sports my whole life. My biggest thing has been foiling is where I've really gotten into sports.
Now, and you started toe foiling at the start? Toe foil, paddle kind of foiling?
Yeah, I started with... No. So I started with paddling, and I did that for a bit, and then I found a bit of a crew, and I had a jet ski, and it was just time on the foil is really important, I find, and I found with proning, though I had enjoyment for it, I wasn't having so much time on foil, and I found with the towing, you're able to get picked up, go back out, catch a wave, and really focus on being on foil and how your foil works, how it moves. And how you need to react to it on the waves.
Mm-hmm.
So totally. I think prone foiling is like the hardest possible way to learn how to foil. There's so many other ways that are so much easier. And proning, as you say, unless you're a really stellar foiler and you have just absolutely perfect conditions, you just spend so little time on the foil that it's just going to take so long to learn by proning.
Yeah, and I think that's how you found a lot of people got frustrated with it at the beginning. And why, I guess, and we'll go into, but why winging has opened the door to so many more people being able to foil. And, you know, we were talking about earlier, just the age bracket with winging, like your age bracket literally is 14 to 80. You could be an 80-year-old and go out and give winging a go and have a real shot at getting it. So I think winging's opened up the market so much more than it ever would have with proning or someone needing the money to own a jet ski.
Yeah. So how long, I guess, so you did that for what, 2-3 years, you said, and then you got
2 years.
into winging after 2 years? Yeah. Okay.
So the winging part, so about 12 months ago, I was looking at kiting, you know, just something else to get on the water, and someone lent me a wing, and I started paddling out the surf with it, and I put a hole in it before I even got out. So felt a bit obliged to buy the wing. So I got it fixed and bought it, and then decided, you know, if I've spent this much money, I'm going to put in the time to learn the sport.
Okay. And what kind of wing was that?
That was an Ocean Rodeo, so not a cheap wing.
Okay. The Glide, or was that the Fulalula one? Just out of curiosity.
A Fulalura.
Oh shit. Okay, yeah, that's not a cheap mistake.
No, it's not a cheap mistake. So you understand why now I am very much focused on learning the sport.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't a mistake. It got you into winging, so that's great.
Oh man, and 100%. In hindsight, was the best mistake I've ever made.
Love it.
So I'm really curious to talk about your community and NX. We had touched about that briefly before. So how you could bring in people from all these different walks of life, have them together. So can you talk maybe a little bit about that wingfoiling community of where you're at?
Yeah, so we kind of started a WhatsApp group. It was about 1 or 2 other guys, just to, you know, where are you going today? What do you think the weather's going to be? What spot are you going to go? What time are you going to go? Just so you could have someone else to go with. Yeah. And that's how it all kind of started. And then, you know, I started going down the beach, and I'd see, you know, a random guy maybe start going by himself, and we're coming in. And I just had the idea that, you know, I'm just going to, everyone I see does that. I'm just going to go up to them, approach them, and, you know, ask their number if they want to join the WhatsApp group. And, you know, we're up to 40 people now, which is
nice.
Which is awesome. It's all, you know, people just get on there. We've got some wind today, so, you know, it only really fires up when there's wind, but we've got wind today, so everyone will kind of just jump on and say, listen, I'm going to this spot about 1:30. There's someone, I can't make it, I'm going to this spot at 2:30. So it kind of gives someone to ride with. You know, safety factor, and I guess just the stoke factor. It's always more enjoyable when you got someone else there hooting you when you catch a good wave or do a good jump than, you know, being out there by yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's something that's really a cool distinction between the surfing community and the wind sport community, is that it's so much more inclusive. If you walk up to another surfer and you ask them, like, where is it happening? What's a good break? They're going to be like, not here. Whereas if you try to, you know, chat with somebody winging or kiting or windsurfing, they're usually super stoked and they want to, you know, share information and stuff like that. So that's really cool to see that it got you into it and you've been able to start this group. That's really sweet.
Oh man, it's amazing. Like, we've got a flat water spot on the Sunshine Coast. Kind of everyone who's a learner will go there. It's kind of where you'll start. You know, it's a good spot. It's quite safe, and yeah, everyone goes there. Everyone goes there and chats. And you're right. It's so different to surfing around. Everyone's so willing to help each other in the sport, which is so good. It's just so refreshing, you know, to have a water sport. Where I was saying to Luke before that, you know, it doesn't matter if there's 20 of you out in the spot. There's so much of a wave that you can cover, and you know, you've got 20 surfers, everyone's hustling for one peak. It's just not the same in wing sport. There's an enjoyment and sharing with numbers that you won't get in surfing.
Especially when you put a foil into the equation, because as you say, you can ride kind of anything. You don't need to be right at that perfect spot, right at that perfect peak. So absolutely.
So we talked a little bit Eddie the Eagle I'm interested in hearing your historic debut into pro.
So I don't know. I'm a kind of person that once I commit to something, that's it. I'm going to commit to it, no matter what I do in life. And yeah, I remember watching a wing foiling world tour in Morocco, I think it was, and just watching these guys and these perfect point breaks, and you know, I was looking at the level, and you know, freestyle was just, you know, something beyond what I could imagine at the time. But I was looking at the surfing, and I was like, yeah, I might be able to compete on this level with the surfing if I put in a bit of time. And it'd just be a bit of amazing to go ride in one of these, you know, one of these spots in the world where they go, and just, you know, with the, you know, 2-man, 3-man heat. And you know, before I'd even really, you know, I was probably only 5 months in the sport, I contacted the World Wingfoiling Tour, and I said, listen, I'm interested in trying to get into one of your events. And yeah, surprisingly, they responded to me and said, you know, definitely apply. And, you know, when we've got wild cards, we'd be able to get you into an event. You can come over. So it all kind of started with that. And then I got a bit more serious with my riding, and, you know, started working on, I guess, my freestyle element, because I knew that that's what I was really missing compared to, if you see these European guys, the Hawaiian guys, it's just amazing what they're pulling off in the air. But it's also, you know, the conditions they're riding in 20, 30 knots compared to our average 12 to 16 here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started working on it and practicing, and then I saw they were having an event here in March, New Zealand, just across the ditch, so about a 3-hour flight from here. And I entered and I got in. So, you know, now all my friends are calling me Eddie the Eagle, because we have no freestyle here. And I'm kind of just this 38-year-old guy who came up with an idea 4 months into a sport. And yeah, I'm going to go over and hopefully be competitive. And super
That's
excited.
awesome.
Yeah, and super excited to see what I can learn off the guys. Like, I'm really looking forward to the 5 days before the competition, because, you know, I've reached out to a few guys and it seems that they go over and all train together. And, you know, it's a lonely time in Australia trying to do freestyle when you just, you know, trying to learn this backflip where all I'm doing is watching on video. But it's very different to see it in person or have someone who knows who's doing it to give you those little adjustments, because that's all it might be. At the moment, I've got the rotation, but I'm just struggling with the wing and putting holes in wings. So yeah, just hopefully I can push my riding and bring it back here. And then if there's anyone else who's interested in Australia, then I can be passing tips down the line.
Totally. I think it's something that we're hoping to see show up in winging, but there's not that much grassroots events right now, as far as I know anyways. Like, there's the international tour, which is really cool for all the pros. But for people that are kind of getting into it and are just looking into getting into, you know, more amateur competition and stuff like that, it doesn't really exist yet. And I think that you know, for me, in my windsurfing, the most progression I ever made was when I was around pros riding. You just learn so much. It's unbelievable. I think what you're doing is amazing. That you're gonna manage to get into the event, that you're gonna participate in it. Like, you're gonna learn so much. It's gonna be such a fun experience.
Yeah, and that's it for me. The worst thing, like, don't get me wrong, I want to be competitive. I'm not like, I'm a competitive person. I want to go over and there be competitive, but I am looking forward to hopefully really progressing my riding, and just seeing where you sit. It's hard to see where you sit on film, if you know what I mean. Like, we've got some really good wave riders in Australia, and we have had some, you know, some local wave riding competitions here. It's mostly racing. Racing's really popular here because we had a lot of windsurfing racing in Australia. A lot of them are transitioning over to winging. So we've got quite a strong racing community in Australia. But yeah, we've got no grassroots freestyling. You're right. Nothing at all in Australia that has freestyling. I know in Europe it's a lot better. It is a lot better in Europe.
Well, we have one buddy, right? Max. He's from Toronto. He got sponsored through a store in Toronto, and now he's on the tour as well. And now he was in Spain. I think he's in Mexico right now training. And he was probably one of the better windsurfers back east in Canada. And now it's been
Oh
really
yeah,
fun to see
definitely.
his progression. He's working on front flip, back flip, rotations, just to get that stuff up to a certain standard to see if he can compete as well. And it's been super cool to watch. So we'll be stoked to watch you out there too.
Well, you know, here's something extremely funny.
But
I actually reached out to him about 2 days ago.
oh, nice.
Yeah, so I reached out to him about 2 days ago, and I saw that he was, you know, he was on the tour and he was coaching. And I actually just reached out to him on Instagram and said, mate, you know, I'm coming to this tour event. I see you're in it, New Zealand, and I'd just love to ride with you and get some tips off you. And shows you with the sport. He straight away wrote back and goes, no problem, man. Happy to help you out. Let me know when you're there, and we'll meet up and I'll ride with you.
Small
Awesome.
world,
You
man.
should totally do that. He's not only is he a really serious athlete, like he was doing a Olympic windsurfing campaign before, but he's also a super good coach. Like he's yeah, that's gonna be awesome. And give him a high five for me and for Luke as well, because he's a good buddy of ours from back home.
Yeah, no, but that's another, you know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna, I don't know, it's just funny that you don't know if these guys, you know, will take the time out of the day, and he didn't have to. And, you know, it's just another thing with the sport. It's awesome that, you know, someone you're going to compete against is going to take out the time to give you their time of day to help you out.
Mm-hmm. I find there's certain aspects of different, like I used to ride motorcycle and I raced motorcycle a little bit, and I went through some different life changes and I don't do that anymore. But the biggest aspect of that whole thing was the camaraderie of the community. Like every time you rode down the street or a road, you would wave at them and you felt like you're a part of this bigger family. And when I found the wind community, when I was rehabbing from the accidents that life brought through that motorcycle, it was amazing to find these people that were that lived a little bit differently, thought a little bit differently, that had something that drove them from a deep passion inside of them. And it was a passion that was very much different than I had seen. It wasn't corporate drive, it wasn't greed drive. It was like freedom and joy that they were working on. And then everybody, for the most part, they're like, hey, like you build this brand new community of friends, and then your community expands everywhere you go. Like if you go to these different spots around the world, I got friends from all over now, and you still share that same love and passion for this sport. And I think that's probably been one of the nicest aspects of wind sports for me.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what you feel the same, which is cool.
Well,
That's
look,
cool.
Yeah,
you know, we're
totally on the same boat as well, dude.
Yeah, like, you know, we're talking from different sides of the world, which we never, you know, take away winging, and we you know, we don't have this conversation, and you know, we're talking about all. So, and it's just a little, you know, I was saying to you before that I went over to Fiji in December, and you know, I got to ride stuff I never would have ridden. Never, if it, you know, though I surfed, I never would have gone over there with, you know, and did the stuff I did over there because of winging, and met the people over there because of winging. And one of the coolest, just getting a story on that, is one of the coolest things about the boats who were going to Fiji was one day it just got really windy, and there's a beautiful left-hand point break off the side, which is the photo for this episode. And you know, you had all the surf guys sitting on there, they were watching, and you know, I went off from the island with one of the instructors who's actually here from the Sunshine Coast, and then we were riding these perfect 4 or 5 foot reef breaks with this 20 knot wind, and it was just like a ride. Like you'd go out the channel, find a set from right at the back and ride it in. And we were out there for 4 hours, and when we came back in, you know, 2 of the surf guides, one from America and a New Zealand guy, was like, man, can you come show us how a wing works? You know, come out the back, and you know, nothing we ever thought we'd try, but we've just been sitting there, you know, not being able to surf, and you're out there having a ball for 4 hours. You know, we want to give it a go. So yeah, I ended up taking behind a jet ski and teaching a bit of foiling, and showed him how the wing works. And yeah, it's just cool that, I suppose, you know, guys who probably think they wouldn't do it or have no interest kind of will watch it and then go, yeah, it's something that I can find fun.
And like the demographics for our podcast, it's mainly 45 to 60. And I'm finding that kind of interesting as well, that like a lot of other sports, even kiting and even windsurfing for the most part, you'll have some guys that are doing it a little bit later. But this is opening up a huge window for people who are a little bit older that when you get your dynamics of standing up, figuring out your wing, like you can foil, like we were saying, right up into your 80s kind of thing, even maybe even later, depending on what kind of foiling you want to get into, which is also pretty cool. Because you're mentioning the competition there, you might have some young people competing with like 40 and some year olds. Like there's such a wide age group, which is pretty neat if you think about it.
Yeah, I was talking to you about it before. It's pretty amazing trying to compare another sport where, you know, in the World Tour, you're talking about not just one 40-plus-year-old or one 15-year-old and then everyone in that 20s. You're talking, you know, numerous of people in their 40s, numerous of kids in their teens, all competing in this one event. And, you know, I suppose golf is the only thing I can really think that's similar in to have that. So, and I think with the equipment, you talk about the age, I think as equipment gets better as well, it's going to open up. So, you know, your most pressure you've got on yourself is really getting on foil. Once you're on foil, you know, you could be on foil if you're on foil, you could be on foil for 3-4 hours and really not be sore. There's so little resistance against you once you're up and going. And with the equipment getting better, you know, if an older guy who might have, you know, some limitations with their fitness can be on a bigger foil, a bigger wing, that's going to get them up easier. And once they're on foil, you know, they can be out there for hours. They're 15 or 17. How stoked are they when they get up on the foil for the first time?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Are your kids getting into it?
No, they're a bit young. They're only 6'4" and 3.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a bit young at the moment, but I definitely will be keen to hopefully get them and see, because it's going to be amazing what this sport is in 15 years. You know what I mean? Like, you're talking 2 years old and guys doing front flips and back flips on waves and 720s. You know, it's amazing where it goes. Like, you know, is it going to become strapless and these kids even doing 360s with no straps on? You know, it's just endless to think of where it could be.
Yeah, we interviewed Caden Pritchard from Maui around Christmas time, and the stuff this kid's pulling off is crazy, and it's really cool to be able to look at this like as a life thing, to be able to have talked to him at 13 and then maybe talk to him in 10-15 years from now, to just see, and he can look back at that interview and say, hey, like, this is where I was and this is how far the sport's progressed. Because we've mentioned this on other episodes, I personally haven't had the opportunity to watch a sport evolve like this one. We're at an age that I can actually kind of comprehend what's going on. Windsurfing was kind of before my time, kiting was before my time, but this one, it's kind of cool that you can watch through all those renditions, which I think is pretty neat.
Yeah, and it's quite funny because a lot of, and you've said it before in message, a lot of people talk about, you know, this happened with windsurf, like this blow up of a sport happened with windsurfing and happened with kiteboarding, it happened with supping, and you know, it's happening with winging. But it's funny, I can't say I was ever around for those explosions either, but I just feel that winging is so accessible for so many different people and can cover so much of the world that I see it being big. I see it grow. You know, it's looking to go into Olympics. You know, you've got racing, you've got freestyle, they haven't even touched on the wave competitions yet. You know, they're doing their first wave competitions this year on the World Tour. And, you know, what these kids are going to be able to do on a wave in 15 years without the freestyle is, you know, there's no limit. And when there's no limit to something, there's endless growth. And, you know, if you've got enough people, enough growth, enough interest, it's going to build, and it is going to get bigger.
I'd love to learn a little bit about your progression in winging. So when you started, and then just kind of walk us through that, and then maybe even talk about some of your first moves and how you were able to kind of connect those dots.
Yeah, so I had zero wind experience, so none. So when I was going out there, I had to learn everything from scratch. So I knew nothing about wind direction, what, you know, where you could go and what wind direction, tide, blah, 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 blah. So I found that most people, I was going out in quite light wind, and I was really struggling, you know, to try and put the foiling together with holding the wing in the right direction. And, you know, I did that for a few weeks, and, you know, I'd get up on foil, you know, I'd get going a bit. As soon as I come down, it'd be another half an hour to work myself up. And then I started going out in strong winds. and I know you don't always get this, but I always recommend this when someone's learning, is go out in strong wind. There's nothing wrong with no power, because you're going to get on foil nice and quick, which is the hardest bit. Then you're going to, you can figure that out. Once you're up and going, you'll start figuring out your progression. So I definitely say that when you're learning, strong wind is your friend, which, I suppose goes against a lot what people might think. I don't know, you as a coach, if you'd agree with that, but I just found it a lot easier
what
to learn.
What does strong wind mean to you?
15 to 20. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the lowest number, I feel like 16 knots is like when you start to see the water get a bit darker. You'll have the light layer of water, and then it starts to get these dark patches that are coming down in gusty Canada. They're very easy to see. I don't know if it's the same over there, but 16 to 20 is such a magical, beautiful number that it just kind of, it powers you right up. So I do agree with that for sure.
Yeah. And then so I started, 3 weeks of really, really terrible time, and enjoyable at all. I found it, difficult. It was tiring. It was a lot of work. And then, it starts coming together. And I compare it to when I learned snowboarding. Snowboarding was a lot quicker, but, I remember starting snowboarding, and that first day you just think, I'm never going to get this balance. You keep falling, and then suddenly you find your middle ground. And I found it the same with winging. Is once I found that sweet spot, everything else started coming a lot easier. Just from that, you progress from straight lines, and then into tacking, into turning, and then this is a progression over probably a month, and then started with the little jumping, and jumping into twisting, and then twisting into trying to flip. So I was attempting backflips probably 6 months in. I had my 180s down probably 3 months in, and 360s around the same time as backflips. And then it's really, and staying down, I would not landing consistently, but being able to pull it off. And the last 6 months has really been about getting better on waves. So learning how to read a wave, where to get onto the wave with the wing, how to hold your wing neutral. You guys would know windsurfing, learning to power up on a wave, the right time to power up with your wing. And just trying to progress and trying to get more consistent with my tricks, and just I go out literally every time there's wind. So
how often are you getting out? Because that kind of progression, normally it takes longer than a year. Like that's super quick progression.
So this week, winter, we're not getting much wind. So winter, maybe 1 or 2 weeks. During summer, we get good patches like right now, where I'm getting out 5 days a week, and I'll go. Really? I'll go out there. I'll go out there for 3 or 4 hours. I'm addicted.
Whoa! Yeah, no, that's awesome.
And I'll fall, and people just, the biggest thing is, you don't be scared. Don't be scared to fall. Learning how to fall is really important when you have a foil underneath your feet and a wing, and feeling safe to foil will make you enjoy foiling and make you progress a lot quicker. If you're worried about foiling and falling and hurting yourself, I think it'll take you longer, because you'll have that in the back. So I think learning to fall and where to drop your foil and where to drop your wings is an important part of the sport.
Do you have any tips for people that you found have helped you?
So I watch a lot of people trying to learn, and they're way too back heavy on their foot, where they're trying to get on forward. You really want to get that forward momentum. So making sure you're kind of pulling with your wing and pushing your upper body forward, and then your lower body follow through to make you get up on foil as quick as possible. And making sure that you spend heaps of time. I know everyone doesn't have the chance, but getting behind a jet ski or a boat and getting up on foil and just learning how to correct yourself on a foil, or how a foil feels, will just make such a difference when you are doing winging or any kind of foiling, because it's such an unnatural feeling to be on a foil. I was listening to, I think, your episode last week when you talked to Steve Tobis, I think his name is, and you asked him what was like first time you got on a foil, and he was like getting bucked on a bike on top of a ladder. And it's so true. So I think the winging side, those little things with the feet and stuff, I recommend everyone goes to a coach when they're learning, and you're going to give them that sort of advice, and that's going to help them. But you can't beat time on foil because, when you're getting up, you'll probably find this as a coach, a lot of people might get up and then have their foot in the wrong place, or they might have their weight in the wrong direction because they just don't know how to react to a foil moving in one way or another. So definitely in general, I think, getting on your foil as much as possible is going to help your winging and everything going forward.
No, it's a good tip. And what I started doing actually is coaching people based on their skill set. Sometimes you'll have a pretty good athlete who has never done anything foil related. You can stand them up right away because you can just tell they're like that. Others, I would actually get them to sit. And then what we do sitting is we just get them to sit, and then you'll start to feel on a big, massive board and then we just get that. And then once you can get sitting a little bit, we'll put you on your knees. And then from kneeling, you can start to control the foil, and you can't buckle nor hurt yourself on your knees. And sometimes with some individuals, all they would do is their first couple sessions, yes, it burned out their quads. Yes, but it taught them that basic of like, okay, so the foil does this, the foil does that. Then our third session, I would stand them up. So I felt that nice, slow progression time on foil was a lot safer because it's not about speed per se. Behind a jet ski, you can gun it. Like I can go whatever, but I could start. I think the slow end was like even on the speedometer on there, it would say 10. Now at 10, I could get you up, and that's all we really needed. So that's kind of cool. So getting into your first jumps, terrifying. Was that fun? How did that feel?
Yeah, definitely scary. And I know you hear from every professional winger that I've heard him speak about, it's about committing. And the easiest way to hurt yourself is not committing. And I think, the first two you'll do, it's going to be scary. And there's a lot of timing involved in it to hit the wave right, to have the wind underneath your wing, and getting that pop. But all I can say is it's so doable. Doesn't matter, if you're a month in, if you're going, it is a doable thing to start doing. And once you get some serious height, there's no better feeling. It's literally no better feeling than just looking down on a wave while you're flying in the air. And when you time everything right, it's just, it's one of the best feelings you'll get out there. So I'd just say, just you want to find a bump. Find yourself a bump. I compare it to an ollie on a skateboard. Get that pop, get your wing in the right direction. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to fall. But it's how you're going to learn. So, and you will progress really quick once you do, because it really isn't that hard at all.
Fair enough. And what size of boards, or how much do you weigh? And then what size of boards are you riding?
I'm about 77 kilos. And after a lot of refining, I'm between a 50 and a 60 litre board. I'll ride majority of the time now. If it's super heavy, I could drop down to a 30. And if it's really light, I'll pull out my downwind board and a big foil just to have a bit of a cruise around.
Okay, fair enough. So your average board is what, like minus 25, I guess? Or like 75 kilos down to 50? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And you said you just got picked up and you're just starting to ride with Duotone Fanatic. Is that right?
Yeah. So I just actually yesterday decided, I've jumped on with them, which is really exciting. I guess it all comes back to, I was with Nash, and Nash took me on early, and they've been absolutely fantastic. And Nash in Australia, the guy JB, is one of the most passionate foilers, windsurfers, kiters you'll ever meet in your life, and has given me amazing advice over the 6 months I was with him. For me, it was Duotone has riders on tour, and I guess as we talked about before, as you guys were saying before, you need to be around riders to improve, and that's really given me the opportunity to ride with some of their guys leading up to these events, and hopefully, if I go to more events, just being around a professional crowd that I can train with, and not to mention their wings are amazing. And amazing that I'm on the new unit. I don't have all my stuff yet, but it really is amazing the low end grunt that wing has, and being able to get that speed nice and quick in between waves to boost and transition.
Mm-hmm. No, I use one of the early on Nash wings, and they don't have a lot of low end. They're more of a higher wind range, I guess, kind of wing. But I was quite impressed with the evolution of the Duotone from, I used one this summer, a brand new one. And they were comparable, let's say, to the F1s. KTs came out. They were also really, really good for low end grunt, but they pumped well. They were a super fun wing. So I think you're going to love riding on those for sure. You're riding their boil, obviously their board and foil too.
Yep. So I'm riding a 55 liter Fanatic LE wingboard, I'm going to say.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for my foils to come. But at the moment, I'm just in between using a 1,000 flow, which is probably a bit big for me. I went out on yesterday. It's I definitely use smaller foils. I like to be quite whippy in the waves and turn it quite sharp. So it was super easy to get out of the water. Great on just lumps, but it was a bit big in steeper sections for me.
Okay. Are you riding mid aspect, higher aspect stuff? What do you find the best for your waves out there?
So I was riding mid aspect the whole time, which for steep sections and recovery, I just don't think you can beat them. They were literally mid aspect wings will give you so much leeway in if you breach it, if you come out. Where you're losing is you're losing speed and I guess and pumpability. So at the moment I was kind of riding the in between the Mark 1s from Nash, which was quite a good in between wing. But I'm super excited about the Fanatic Carve 750. I've watched quite a bit of it online, and it just looks like such a rippable wing.
Sweet. No, I think that's going to be so. It's the first time they go over to New Zealand. Is that right?
No, I've been in New Zealand skiing. I've actually been there snowboarding.
Okay.
But yeah, first time I've been in North Island, so it's up in Bay of Plenty.
Okay.
Don't ask me to pronounce the exact spot because I can't off the top of my head.
Fair enough.
Basically, I fly into Auckland and it's about a 2-hour drive, and it's a little coastal town. They've got a wing festival down there, so they'll have wingfoil racing, music. I think there's sup racing, and the wingfoil tour. So it's over about So I think the waiting period is 3rd to 11th. So yeah, I'm going to try and go there 5 days before and just wing as much as I possibly can. And as I said, hopefully get some tips off these guys and kind of see where I how far off it I am, which is really interesting to me. To see where I need to be competitive with these guys.
Max is we'll mess it because we've been we want to have a chat, just a catch up with them, because we normally would sail with them on the Great Lakes, but we'll follow up with them to chat with him. He's awesome, and he has a really good crew of people now that he trains with, so they're going to be more than happy to chill and do stuff. Max is probably one of the nicest guys, and like I met him at Sandbanks, and it just became super tight. So he's a real good guy. So I think it'll be super fun.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited. And especially the fact that someone's being a coach, and you're a coach, and it just they can kind of explain things, probably better than someone like I can, or someone else who might be a fantastic rider. But you guys as coaches, you just seem to break it down a lot easier, and be able to explain it in a way that you can kind of transition that into actually doing it. So.
Yeah. That's fair. And Max is taking it from like my level of coaching will go to where I can ride. Now his level is like that next level, and he's been able to work through and learn all that and train. So his coaching will be a completely different level than mine. Like I'm taking people from zero to they can tack and jibe, and like I just ride strapless all the time. I don't even jump. So but I have been looking at getting a smaller board. So it's cool talking to you guys about just what boards you're riding. Because I've just been riding a float and ride, like a 70 liter. I'm 150 pounds, so like whatever that comes out to, 70 some kilo.
Yeah, that's same.
So the 70 liter board for me is just a floater. I can come in 8 knots and float on it and stuff. But this year I was starting to think, Steve was saying he rides a 32 or 33 liter. Is his smaller board because he sinks that well. So you're 50 now. That thing's it's sinking a little bit, right? But it's not.
Yeah,
how do you water start that thing?
No, so it's quite funny to talk about it because I went all the way down to a 30, and I suppose Steve's, he's riding in Hawaii when they've got some serious wind, and I was in serious wind. I think deep water start can be easier. I think your feet are already set. You can hold your wing in position, and you're literally just puffing, and you're straight up onto floor. You're not having to transition from knee up to a leg. We just don't get enough wind that it was feasible for me to do it enough. So I had to kind of find in between. So 50 liter, I'll be on my knees, but I'll be sinking, maybe, I don't know, half a foot underneath. And then as soon as I get any wind, it'll pop up, and then I'm up to my feet. Kind of found the 55 is probably my perfect weight. I literally just sink it. But in light wind, I can stand on it and still kind of putt back in if I had to.
Okay, so you're knee starting. You're not surf style starting. Yeah, you're knee starting on it.
Yeah.
Knee starting. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I have a very similar advice as what you do for sport sizes. I find that something around your weight in kilograms, 20 to 25, is really the sweet spot where you can still make it work when it's light. It's totally small enough to be fun when it's windy, and you're not getting penalized by having to do a water start. Because realistically, water starting, you need 20 knots. Like, unless you're using a huge wind, like you need a lot of wind. And it's just not a reality for a lot of people, especially if you're riding in spots where it's really gusty and you have, 12 gusting to 20 knots. Your 20 knots is only lasting about 10 seconds. So you're either real fast and real efficient, or you're just never going to get up. So, I think Steve riding in Maui with all that wind totally makes sense. But for anybody looking into getting into smaller boards, that weight minus your weight in kilograms minus 20 to 25 is a really good place to start. And just the last little thought on that is, I would say, and I don't know what you think about this, Kiran, but to me, you should kind of hold off on that board until you're making all of your transitions basically all the time. If you're falling, half the time in your transition, I think you're not quite ready yet for that board, and it's just going to be more of a hassle than it's going to be a fun thing.
Yeah, and takes away fun if you're always having to get up. I think you also find that a lot of the companies are realizing that majority of the people who are riding don't have those Maui conditions. To be honest, totally. Maui is a special wind place, and I think what you'll find is they're making shorter boards more floaty. So, my 55 liter Fanatic board's 4.7. So, I can throw that thing around as much as I want. I don't feel like it stops through my spinning or my jumping. But, I can still knee start it and get out through the waves, or if I had to, come back in for safety. And I even think a 70 for someone my weight, is a very, very enjoyable, progressive board you could be on. You can still do a lot of things on a 70 liter board that's 5 feet without that struggle. If you are struggling on a smaller board, or you're still struggling between doing your turns or getting up.
How big was the board that you started on?
I started on an 85 liter.
Okay, that's still small enough.
Oh, that must have been hard.
Enough.
Yeah, but I could still stand on that. I don't know. I found it float. It floated me. I had to progress pretty. I was starting with the guys I was going with. I was 6 months behind these guys. So, I didn't really have a choice but to learn quick. Otherwise, it was a lot of paddling and a lot of walking up beaches for me.
why it would have been, because I learned on 100 and I don't know, I think I was on a 105, a windsurf, kind of big 105. And I think I may even have been on a 150 for a little bit at the start too. And then from there, 105 down to an 80, and then the 80 was a decent jump, and now down to 72, just because in cold water, I didn't want to have to worry about it sinking at all. But
Yeah, bigger boards. It's great when they learn, but I find they struggle with that swing weight once they start getting the turns and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I've had so many people. I just, you know, I'll say, you know, you're up now, which, you know, they have to be up. You want to start on a big board and get those straight lines, but you see them start to turn and they're on a 130 liter, and you see that thing, you know, ankle breaker go the opposite direction. You just think, geez, I think you're ready to drop down on 85
or teaching are absolute beginners. They may have kited, they've never foiled. So and if I only have them for 1 hour and then it's part of their vacation to Vancouver Island, for example, I try to make it a little bit fun. So hopping them on a 150 or 30, at least they can get up, because a lot of these guys are weighing like, they're not 150 to 165 pounds, or sometimes 180, 200, even 220. So it's like I'm trying to get them aboard, and the school has a board big enough. But after they figure it out, like maybe in a couple hours, they would be ready for something significantly smaller, which is the nice thing about going to a school, because then you might avoid buying the big behemoth that you might not need for very long if you progress quickly, right? So sometimes taking lessons will save you some money.
I recommend 100%. Like everyone I talk to, you should go to a school. Like everyone should go to a school, because it'll save you money. It'll save you, like when you're talking about before, like, you know, it takes you a long time, so you can teach someone to sit, kneel, you know, where someone could be spending 4 months trying to stand, and then you just show them something little like that to get them going. And it saves them, you know, 3 months of learning, and then, you know, the money of them buying big stuff. Because unfortunately, there are good dealers out there, but some dealers are just going to sell you what they want to get rid of. And you not having an idea, I 100% recommend to anyone, if anyone's listening to it or if anyone wants to start, is you go to a coach and you spend that money to go to a coach and listen to it. I'd like to ask you, the other question is, I see that there's a lot of foil drives coming into the coaching for winging. What's your opinion on that?
I think the issue with them is that I don't know if you've gotten to try one, Kiran, but basically when you throttle up, you have, so you'll probably relate to this, but basically when you throttle up, the nose of the board just really wants to go up super hard. And at that point, you need to move your weight way far forward to compensate for that. And that's just something that doesn't happen when you're winging. You do need to keep your weight a little bit forward, you know, for the foil not to pop up. But otherwise, it's just not something that happens when you're winging. And the other thing is that they're so heavy and so big that it's really hard to pump the board. So for me, behind the boat or the jet ski, like you were saying before, that's really the way to do it. And you can be riding kind of the same foils that you're going to be winging on. You can be on a nice big board that you can stand up on and not have to move your feet. Just already have the instructor tell you where to put your feet. And then, you know, they put you at the right speed. They'll go, I think was saying, around, you know, 10 knots. It seems to be like a pretty sweet spot for a lot of foils. And I find that that's a way better setup to learn on than on an e-foil. Having said that, I have had really good feedback from friends that have, you know, e-foiled and thought that it was a good way to improve your foiling and just get more time on the foil. Yeah, if you don't have access to a boat or a ski or something like that.
They've got kind of a bit different things over here called fall drives, which I'm sure you've seen. They're kind of attached to your mast. So there's just a little engine that attaches. And we went to a demo day for it the other week, and it's quite a bit different. It does want to lift with the nose, but you can put them on quite bigger boards. And I know that in Australia, they're getting used to teach winging quite a bit. I still think you're right. I think that it's not going to give you the exact same feeling. So you might go to wing afterwards and it could be completely different. But it's just another interesting concept that I guess they're bringing to try and reach more and more people. And, you know, I guess if someone comes to a lesson and they're really far off learning, being able to foil, if you get them on, then they still get the feeling and might get the passion for it.
Yeah, totally. I think the foil drive, it actually makes more sense than the e-foils because you have the engine so much higher up, so it doesn't
That's
bring the
right.
nose up as much as you're saying. And it gives you that little bit of forward momentum you need to get the thing moving and to get it popped up on foil. At that point, as you're saying, you pop up and you get the feeling, and cool. Yeah, absolutely. We're having fun right away.
Because the one thing I've seen a problem with towing is the kind of rope you're using. So if you just like the rope that we had at the school was not as like a kind of the stretchy ones that you use for wake foiling and stuff. So our rope would sink. Our rope was super tight. It was like a yellow, whatever, standard nylon rope stuff. So like it was super hard on their arms. So there was, and then as a ski driver, you got to get used to throttling up, throttling down. So there's a lot of things that came into making that an enjoyable experience as I learned how to be a better instructor for the people that I was teaching. But if you get the right tow rope, obviously, so if anybody that doesn't want to try that, get the right tow rope. Don't cheap out because they do. The other ones sink. The other ones will yank your shoulder out. And then what I would say is as soon as you go to fall, let go of everything. I'll come by, I'll pick you back up. Because what I was finding was that people would hold on and then they would start to, and then they would just start to sink underwater. And it takes me like 15 seconds to go. And then you do like this kind of question mark thing with your jet ski, which then puts the handle right in front of them. And then they just grab it and they pop right back on. So that's the only downfalls I've seen of it. Another thing I saw when I was teaching a buddy who's used to kiteboarding is he went way too far forward on the board and kept asking for more speed. So he was like, dude, I'm not going fast enough. I can't pop. And I was like, and I did it once. And then as soon as he popped, he came so close to hitting that I saw the fear of what death in his eyes. And I said, okay, so next time we're going to back you right up onto it. And that's go super slow. And then you'll know the difference of kiting versus this, because foiling is not about speed. So those are the little things that I've noticed about teaching of towing. Obviously, if you can get something where you can like throttle lock it would be awesome because you're always kind of playing up and down. But yeah, for us, it was mainly the things that I learned that were the hardest was the rope, just to make sure you had the right rope.
All fun and games.
I totally agree. I've had the opportunity to tow with quite a few different crafts, and I think what seems to be the easiest is the biggest boat you can find with the most powerful engine you can find, because the boat absolutely doesn't care about the person behind it. Whereas a ski or like a really small rib or something like that, you just don't have enough power to go at a constant speed without pulling up quite a bit. And the second person pops up in foil, like take off and accelerate. So the person who's driving needs to be really on it and kind of throttle down and keep everything under control. Whereas a big boat with a big powerful engine, it doesn't feel the person behind it. So you can just set the RPMs at what you want them to be. You set your speed at 10 knots and that's it.
So pretty much what we're saying is we'd like a $250,000 wake boat for the podcast, and we want to be able to.
Yeah, if it can make like a nice wave behind to learn how to surf foil, absolutely.
You guys like to get a lot of followers and a lot of sponsorship to
for all of us. We're looking forward to chatting with you, especially when you get over to New Zealand. It'd be cool to even hop on quickly and do a little walk around with you to see how that experience kind of feels. Because there are a lot of people that have from out here that would love to go to New Zealand. It's just really far.
Yeah, no, I'd be definitely keen to do that. Like I'm super happy to show any people, just average Joe going to this world championship and just showing the experience.
Nice. All right. We'll talk to you soon then. And hey, thanks a lot for joining us.
All right. Nice to meet you, boys.
Thanks for joining Tom and I on this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.